The R36S has been a dominating factor in the budget retro handheld space for the better part of a year now, thanks to its ability to play some higher end games for its price set. It fits really well into its space. It's only got a couple of shortcomings, which are its screen size, as well as the ergonomics of the handheld itself, and that might all change today. What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at the R36Max. The Max offers everything that we know and love about the R36S, but upgrades it to a 4-inch 1:1 aspect ratio screen and adds those ergonomics that we've been missing this whole time. But will the R36Max be that handheld that we need in order to move forward? That's what we're going to find out today. Let's take a look. Before we get going, this R36Max was provided to me for a fair and honest review. As always, all thoughts and opinions are of my own, and we're going to find out what this handheld is all about. So in order to do that, let's start with an unboxing here. This is the R36Max box. It does look pretty nice. It's a pretty professional box set that they do have here. It does have the specs here on the back, but we will also discuss those here shortly. And if we open her up, we do have our first thing that we do see is a case inside the box, as well as an origami accordion. They aren't real in-depth, but they do have some of the basic features and functions you need. And on the backside here, we do have directions that you can scan the QR code to get further, more in-depth directions. But the basic stuff you need is right here. This goes over everything from charging instructions to how to pick a core to play a different game system. So pretty much the basics that you're going to need at least to get going. Now the handheld does come in a case, which I think is pretty awesome. It does say unique style on it. This is shipped very much like the Miu Minis, where it's in a case in a box. The Miu Mini Flip came that way. Back in the day, they used to just ship them in the case, and now they've added the cases to boxes, which I think it's crazy. The handheld is right here, but before we get into that, let's go into these couple of accessories that it does come with. It comes with a non-glass screen protector, but you know what? Something's better than nothing, so I do appreciate that they do include this into the box. And it also has a USB-C to USB-A cable for charging, and that definitely is USB-C to USB-A, and we're just going to put those right back in there. All right, and we got the handheld itself. That didn't work at all. All right, here we do have the R36Max. You will find a 64GB unique style memory card. They do have a unique memory card that's uniquely theirs, I guess. This one's uniquely for this handheld. Interestingly enough, this goes into slot 2, which is the game card slot, and it's not the operating system slot. And we're going to talk about in a minute why that's confusing, because it threw me off a little bit while I was doing some things with this handheld. We do have a piece of plastic here, and we do have our 4-inch display. Let's get these things off my desk so we can go through the I/O real quick. All right, with our R36Max here, we do have a very nice and seemingly comfortable handheld. All right, let's go through the I/O real quick. On the top here, we have nothing. On the back here, we do have our shoulders and triggers. They are a bit stiff as far as the triggers go. Shoulders are just fine. And we do have some little lady lumps back here, a little booty on the back of this handheld. On the left-hand side over here, we do have our power and our reset button, which are on the opposite side of what they are in most handhelds. It can get a little confusing. We do have our TF2 slot, which is typically for games. Like I mentioned before, for some reason, the OS actually goes into that card slot on this particular handheld. On the right-hand side over here, we do our volume up and down, and then TF1. And this should be our slot for our operating system, which we will use later as I'm going to test out ArcOS on here. On the bottom here, we do have our Type-C hole for charging, as well as a Type-C hole for OTG. Typically, you'd use that for hooking up another controller or Wi-Fi, something like that. And then we do a 355 hole. I used to think that these were the speaker holes on the bottom. I don't know what they're for. They're some kind of ventilation or something like that, because our speaker is actually here on the front. We do a front-facing speaker right here in the middle, single horn front-facing speaker, and then we do have our face buttons next to it. Though these are square, they do actually have really good bounce and pivot back, so they come back into position very well, but they are a little weird to play with because they are square, and it throws you off because your whole life you've always played with round buttons, I would assume. This is the first set of square buttons I've ever used. Beyond that, we do have our joysticks, and they do have L3 and R3, so they are clicky. We do have our D-pad right here. Our D-pad also has a decent pivot. It's definitely better than some of the D-pads I've played with recently. It tends to almost feel like it's going to get stuck. It never does though, so it's fine. It's just a perception thing, but it feels like to me that it's going to get stuck, and it just never has. That's the only way I can explain it. It just, the way that it comes back up, it feels like it's a little bit resistant, but it's not. And then we do also have our soccer ball to shoot into our speaker soccer ball goal, and this soccer ball here is our menu button. It's also a fidget spinner, which I've never seen anybody mention before, but it's definitely a fidget spinner. So if you're bored, you can fidget spin away on your soccer ball. And then you do have your heart-shaped start and select buttons, which are very clicky. These have similar switches probably to those of the shoulder buttons without pulling it apart. The triggers, for whatever reason, though, still are much harder to push. All right, and that gives us that. Let's powering on here. We are going to go through the specs real quick. It says we have a 4-inch 1x1 full-fit IPS display, which is great for games like Pico 8, and we'll take a look at that. The resolution is 720 by 720. It is rocking an RK3326 The Cortex A35 at 1.5 gigahertz, pretty much the same SoC as you're going to see in the original R36S, just going to get some new features along with this one. This is a Mali-G31 MP2 GPU. It is rocking 1 gigabyte of RAM. It has those dual SD card slots that I had discussed before on the left and the right, both for OS and for game storage. It does have an OTG port on the bottom for Wi-Fi. Well, I have yet to be able to get Wi-Fi to work, and I've tried multiple dongles on it. And that speaker right here in the middle is an 8-watt cavity speaker. As I discussed before, the Soccer Girl speaker here is 8 watts. This is a 4,000 milliamp battery. Should give you about 6 hours. I'd say that if you're playing higher end systems on here, you're going to get a little bit less, but it does feel about right on here. For any of your entry level emulation, to get up into PSP and stuff like that, you're dropping down to about 3 and 3.5, just so you're aware. Charging on here is a 5 volt 1.5 to 2 amp charger, so it is definitely not going to use your rapid chargers or anything like that. It's just a traditional Type-C charging setup. The R36Max is very much a combination of two handhelds. It's a combination of the Powkiddy RGB20SX and the R36S. So it really is kind of both of these handhelds built into this one particular handheld, which is kind of cool because you can kind of take the best of everything and put it into one device, in theory anyways. So what we have here is a 1x1 display, which you are going to see on the RGB20SX, and this is going to give you access to a system called Pico 8. Now you can play Pico on other handhelds like the R36S, but on the R36Max, you can actually play the game and actually be able to see it. But because I do have a card that I did load ArcOS on, I will be able to show you some Pico 8 in the gameplay on here. The stock operating system does have an EmuElec overlay. I'm kind of getting used to EmuElec. Feels like it's on just about everything now as far as these more budget style handhelds, which is totally fine. Now you've got systems like N64 on here. You're going to have some PSP. Now PSP is going to be a little goofy on a 1x1 aspect ratio screen because you are going to lose a lot of real estate here. You can do a lot of optimization with other systems as well to make them look better on this 1x1 screen. And some things that are really good on this screen, and though they don't fit 100% perfectly, they are very, very close, are going to be your original Game Boys, Game Boy Colors, things like that. They look absolutely amazing on this screen. And there are some advantages of this screen versus the RGB20SX, to be honest with you. This takes full advantage of its real estate, so it's not overblown. So this device isn't any bigger than it needs to be, where the RGB20SX is a massive device. Just in hand, it feels like a much bigger device because it's wider. They also rounded off these corners, which I think is unneeded. I wish they would have gone with the square corners. So I think the R36Max is actually winning in a lot of that category. When you look at the two next to each other, it's significantly smaller and easier to work with. So I think they took the things out of the RGB20SX that they liked and they just made them better for this, which is really cool when they're basing this off of the R36S, which was really based off of an Anbernic device. They've taken the best of a couple of the bigger manufacturers to build this particular handheld. The other thing that they fixed from the RGB20SX is how the shoulder buttons sit back here. So they're built in that ergonomics, but they're not sticking out. One of the biggest problems with the RGB20SX is these hook on your pocket if you put it in your pocket, because these buttons, I don't know if I can show it on camera here, they stick out significantly past the shell itself. And so they're terrible the way these things sit on here. Now, they do move better than the R36Max, but they really kind of suck. And a lot of that's just because they get hooked on everything that you do. They have really addressed that here, and I am grateful for that because this makes this device something that I actually want to carry around with me because I don't have to worry about that. And again, it's smaller. Just in general, the device itself is smaller. So they did a good job really thinning her out and making it more narrow and things like that. It's taller. Maybe that's where they made up the difference. I was wrong. For some reason, I was thinking it was shorter, but it feels shorter because it's not so wide. Now that we have a good idea of the look and feel of the R36Max, I think it's time to do a little bit of gameplay. And I'm just going to play through a few different games in different systems to kind of work my way up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to end at Pico 8, and then I'm going to try to play that off of the ArcOS operating system, just to make sure ArcOS does work on here and I'm steering you in the right direction. So we're going to give that a shot here real quick. We are going to start off with some Neo Geo. Now this is Neo Geo Drift Out, and I use this to look for screen tearing. It's a good game in order to find screen tearing if there is going to be any in the game. Also gives you a little chance to test out that left joystick if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it does give you an opportunity to do that if you want to. So I'm not seeing any screen tearing. Pretty much every level on this game will get screen tearing if screen tearing is going to be an issue. This actually looks like a much crisper image than we see on all the 3.5-inch screens that are going to be 640 by 480. All right, we got a little Donkey Kong Country 3 going on here on Super NES. See if we can't get shoot, I didn't mean to do that. See if we can't get the there we go, FPS counter up. Now we got a little Mega Man 6 on PS1. If I remember right, if you get it in this guy's mouth, I think he gives you something. Yeah, look at that. Okay, I don't remember what's what. Oh, there we go. It's a stupid snake thing. That's right. Now I got some Metal Slug here on PSP. Oh, just died right away. That's not a good way to start. There we go. Oh, boom. I don't in any world believe that this game is going to play on here, and I think it's pretty daring when companies actually add this game to their library in order to try to bump up their library a little bit. We're going to try to play Cruisin' USA. This is one of the hardest games to emulate. Even on a RK3566, the next processor up from this, you would struggle to be able to emulate Cruisin' USA. So I'm going to say it's probably not going to work on here unless they did some crazy optimization, which I have seen before, but it's very rare that this game will actually play. Wow, this is actually doing really well so far. Way better than I thought it would. Usually by now, it's like jumping all over the place. But there we go. We just had a huge frame dip. We dropped 20 FPS and another 5 on top of that, and she'll just start crawling, I bet. But this actually made it further into this than I thought it was going to. I can't remember which one's gas, this one. Yeah, so we're definitely not going at full speed here. We're going just over half speed. But again, this one's not super choppy. It's not as bad as a lot of these are. So this game should be coming in at 60 FPS, and we are coming in at 30.11 FPS. Between 30 and 40, it just keeps kind of jumping around. So we are definitely not going full speed. But I thought I'd give it a shot because you aren't going to be able to play everything that's in here, but it's really fun to try. And even though this isn't playing even at half speed right now, it's still smoother than most of the R36 type devices actually play this. So there is some better optimization here. Ooh, we're down to 15. I spoke too soon. There is some optimization here, but it's not making this game playable. So we're just going to move on. But I thought I'd give it a shot just because it was included on here, which is kind of a daring thing to do. Most companies have stopped putting this game in their libraries for this specific reason, because most of us testers will go through and try this game right away. So this is another game that usually will not emulate super well. Sometimes it does okay. You're actually almost better off if it sticks around 30 FPS instead of 60, because at least you're halfway there. These buttons are really hard to hit on the back here. Yeah, so this is, I'll talk about this in my follow-up at the end here, but some of these games are going to be very difficult to play just because of the way the buttons are. So I'm trying to use these back buttons back here for my gas and my brake, and it is just not in the right spot when you're trying to use like the sticks, for instance. But yeah, this is another one of those games. It's a real bold choice, and it's, yeah, so now if I need to downshift, it gets tricky. It's not going to play at full speed, and I wasn't expecting it to. But I just wanted to kind of show an example of, they do add these games and they do include them, obviously, in their total count of games that they have on here. That doesn't mean that the games are necessarily going to play. They're using a ROM library that they use for all kinds of stuff. And this is actually a very solid ROM library. There isn't a lot of box art scraped. There is some. And some of the systems are numbered, unfortunately. So instead of those systems being in here by name, it's numbered then named. So it's really almost impossible to find a game unless you have a good feel for where those numbers are going to be. And there really is no rhyme or reason. They're not numbered by rank or anything like that. They're just kind of in there. Yeah, we're not going to make it. Well, that's okay. Oh, crap. We might have made it, actually. Oops. Anyways. So that's kind of how that works. So that'll give you a little Dreamcast. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to take this memory card out, and I'm actually going to put in an ArcOS memory card. The reason being is I want to test ArcOS, and I have been kind of testing it a little bit on this device, but I was hoping that we were going to get Wi-Fi by going to ArcOS, and it still didn't work on there. The other reason being is I have a bunch of Pico 8 games that I want to play on here, and so I was kind of trying to get Pico 8 to work on there with Wi-Fi. It didn't work, but I did load a bunch of Pico 8 games on there already. So we can test out a Pico 8 game just so you can see the beauty of having a game that actually fits the screen about perfectly. And so I think that's going to be a big benefit to anybody who gets this device, is to look into doing Pico 8, which is the virtual console. That's where Celeste started. If you're familiar with the game Celeste, it started on Pico 8. So this is the original Celeste on Pico 8. And I am not good at it. I just used this for another video recently, and I'm like, oh man, I need to go back and play this game again because I just do not remember how to play it anymore. Oh no. I make fun of Stubbs from Retro Handhelds all the time on his Celeste playing, and I'm so bad at the game. Like, he is so much better at it than I am, but you know what? I don't care. I'm going to make fun of him because he does it as a contest, and I'm just doing it to... Oh my god, I'm not going to make it past this point. I just do it as a demo. Oh, I did make it. Whew. All right. Feeling real good about myself right now. Which one's gas? All right, here we go. So now we got some desert drift going on. And yes, you can still use the joystick. Oh, Pico 8 does really just use your D-pad and your A and B button, or I guess it's X and something else, because it was originally just for computers. Oh no. But the D-pad actually seems to work pretty well in here, and so does the joystick, so take advantage of whichever one you'd like to use, apparently, in this game, or any other game. This reminds me of Rad Racer. Isn't that what it's called? Rad Racer on NES? I think so. Rad Racer. Except for I haven't seen any other cars yet. I think Rad Racer has a lot of cars and stuff on it. If I remember right. It's been a long time. Oh, I finished! Holy crap, I actually finished a race. The system with the screen is almost perfect for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. It is off slightly, but it is very close to being the way that it needs to be for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. So this here is Army Men, and this is on Game Boy Color here. Obviously not Game Boy, but it's on Game Boy Color. And as you can see, it fits the screen really well. If you're into those classic Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, this is a great handheld to get, specifically for this 4-inch 720 by 720 1x1 screen we have here. I mean, it looks really good. And you're going to get some gameplay out of here that you're not going to get on a lot of the other emulators that are out there, just because you are going to fit the screen on here a lot better than you are on a lot of the other emulators that are out there. But I don't know what I'm doing in this game. I haven't played this game since I was a kid. I don't remember anything about it, but I just thought I'd bust out a Game Boy Color game. There's somebody to shoot at, I think. Yeah. I like this on Game Boy Advance. I played more of that one than this one, unfortunately, for this demonstration anyways. Those guys have got some good camouflage. They blend right into this desert. Oh man, I had them in my sights. What did I do? What is going on here? How come I cannot... There we go. I can't hit that guy. It saved my life. Literally. There we go. I'm figuring out where their hitbox is. It's got to be right about there. Nope. I died. But that gives you a little feel for it. I'll throw a Game Boy game on here for you too, just so you can kind of see what that'll look like. So here we are playing Adventure Island on the original Game Boy. Now you could change the screen and stuff too for the colorization, so if you wanted to make it more green, or if you want to give it different hues of different colors like you could on like the new LCD screens you can get for the Game Boy, you definitely can do that on here as well. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't jump on a snail. This is a game I always played on NES, but I felt like it might be a good game on here. What I feel like I'm missing is a skateboard. I recall there being a skateboard on here. It's in the NES version. Isn't that what this thing is? No. Not a skateboard. Oh my goodness. Can I not jump over him? I'm so confused. Well, you get the basic idea anyways. I suck at Game Boy games. And also, it looks really good on here. I did make it stretch to fit, but it really isn't stretched a whole lot. It's really right on the money for the most part. So you have a device that's about as tall as a Game Boy, but way thinner, and the screen is massively bigger than an original Game Boy would be, so there's a lot of benefit here. All in, I think the R36Max is a solid pickup, as long as you can get it for the right price. It does have a lot of pros and a couple of cons we will go over here real quick. The first con being that this was aesthetically made to be a TikTok device. There's no other reason to go with square buttons, a soccer ball, some little hearts. I mean, this is really a device made for campaigning on TikTok, which is totally fine. It's just you lose some playability by putting some of these things on here. I don't believe the soccer ball or the start select buttons as hearts really do affect the overall gameplay, but the square face buttons actually do make it more difficult to play fighting games and some platformers. So just something to keep in mind. It's not terrible. I played with it for a week, and by the end, it wasn't bothering me as much as it was at the beginning, so I think it will grow on you. But if you've been playing video games at all in your life, you've always had round buttons, so it is going to take some adjusting to get used to square buttons. I mean, kudos to them for trying to go outside the box, but again, I think they were just trying to make an aesthetically pleasing handheld for something like TikTok, and they're losing a little bit of functionality out of that, as well as the back here with the bumps. It is difficult to use sometimes with these bumps because I do have adult hands, and I believe that these bumps are made for children's hands, so my fingers are squished together if you put them between the butt cheeks like they're supposed to be. It really is a squishy way to play, and I'm not a big fan of it. I do find myself holding it out here to play, like I would on any other handheld. So to me, that says that those bumps are unneeded because I'm holding it just like I would everything else and literally holding where the bumps are not, which is naturally where I hold another handheld. So for me, I guess it works out great. There is an advantage though of having these bumps, and that is if you are like me and a father, I'm often carrying a child in one hand or I have one sitting with me with my arm around them. With this handheld and those bumps, there are some games out there you can play with one hand, and these bumps become a big advantage then because you can literally just use the bump, hold on to the lower butt cheek here, and you can play with one hand, and it's very stable. You don't have to worry about dropping the device, and you still get full functionality and control of the things you would play on a game that you can play with one hand. So I think there is an advantage there. I did find that on another device like this, the K36, which is pretty much a R36S with these bumps. That was the same thing I found on there with these bumps as well. Gameplay on here works very well and is clean within its restrictions, and by that I mean within the systems you should be able to play on a 3326, it works great. I'm not sure that there's a need to put a lot of the ROMs on here that they do for the N64 and Dreamcast and things like that, though it is kind of fun to push the limit sometimes and see what you can play, and sometimes you can be very surprised at the games that you don't think will run actually run, and that is so specific to different devices. Even with the same RK3326 chipset in, they all seem to play different things based off the optimization of the system. Some of the really easy games won't play, some of the really difficult ones will, and vice versa. And so it is kind of fun to go through and find out what will and won't work. It is a little disappointing though when the games that you want to play are the ones that don't work, and the ones that do work are games that you're not interested in. But you don't know that until you go through and try to find out. I think that's half the battle with retro handhelds, is just having fun tinkering around with them. So I actually do enjoy that part of it. Now if you're new to this hobby and you're picking this up off the street, just know this will play solid through PS1, and then everything after that is considered a bonus because it will be extremely inconsistent. If you wanted something to be more consistent with that, you'd want to step into a device that has the H700 SoC, and then the A133, and then possibly the 3566 to keep within reach of this price point and find a device that would have more power to be able to play some of those higher end systems you're possibly looking for. But for the systems that this is made to play, it does so good. It does so good with Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Pico 8, man. I love Pico devices. I have a lot of 1x1 devices specifically for playing Pico 8, and this definitely is one of those devices now. This will make my Pico 8 rotation now that I've got some Pico 8 games loaded up on ArcOS. I am a little disappointed that of the 8 dongles I tried, I couldn't get a single one to connect to Wi-Fi. That would have made the Pico experience better, being able to access the library on the go, as well as being able to change themes and scrub box art directly from the device versus putting your memory card in the computer. That would have been a fantastic way to go. I'm not sure if this is just device specific to this. It's very rare that we find one of these R36 devices that doesn't have internet access via USB dongle on the OTG port. If you have one of these and it does get Wi-Fi, let me know in the comment section, because I've tried pretty much everything that I've done on every other device and just can't get it to work. And to me, it says it's going to work, and I think it's going to. It just doesn't want to. So let me know what your thoughts are or how you got yours to work. That'd be fantastic. As far as the ROMs on the 64 gig card, they did a pretty good job of getting ROMs on here that are in good shape and not corrupted. You are still going to find some ROMs in like the PS1 library that are missing audio files. The reason why they do that is to compact the game to make it more playable. I don't know that that's necessary on the 3326 on a PS1 game, but there are a couple instances where I ran into that. I was actually surprised though that there was more instances where I didn't run into that, where they actually had the full file with the music and everything. That is a very nice change in comparison to what we normally see in this space. But all in, I think it's a fun little device and definitely worth the money that they're selling for it if this is something that you're looking for. If you really want that Pico device and you want that bigger screen than just a regular R36S, the R36Max here does offer more. And so I think that that is a big bonus. It is a unique twist on a very common handheld that we've been seeing over the last year. It is nice to see something a little different, and a little different in a good way. Not something super outlandish, but instead a bigger screen that allows for more gameplay. I think that's fantastic. But that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel. And once you're done with all that paperwork, there's a couple of videos up here on the screen that YouTube picked out for you. They say you're going to like them. I'm not going to disagree with them. So if you do us both a favor and check one of those videos out, YouTube thinks it's going to make you happy, and that'll make me happy. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.